She walked into the grandest party in San Francisco, dressed with elegance and confidence, ready to celebrate a night of charity and hope. But within moments, the room that sparkled with diamonds and champagne turned cold. Instead of being welcomed as a guest, she was pointed toward the service entrance, mocked, and stripped of her dignity. In front of California's most powerful elite, she was ordered to do the unthinkable, wash dishes, as if she did not belong. The laughter of the wealthy echoed, while silence from the crowd revealed a darker truth about prejudice hidden in plain sight. What none of them realized, though, was that the woman they tried to humiliate carried a secret so powerful it would shatter reputations and turn this glittering night into a scandal that would make national headlines. What happened next would stun everyone. Nadia Carter was not the kind of woman who faded into the background. At 31, she carried herself with a quiet strength that turned heads even before her success was mentioned. Born in a working-class neighborhood of Atlanta, she had fought her way through schools where resources were scarce but ambition burned bright. Her parents worked long hours, her mother as a nurse, her father as a mechanic, and instilled in her the belief that dignity and education were the most powerful tools one could ever possess. From those early days, Nadia carried the weight of expectation, but also the fire of determination. That determination took her farther than many ever imagined. She graduated at the top of her high school class, earned a full scholarship to Yale, and later became one of the most respected graduates of its business school. In a world where doors were often shut to women who looked like her, Nadia refused to let rejection define her. Instead, she carved her own path, founding a consulting firm that grew steadily, year after year. Within 12 years, it was valued at $75 million, its clients spanning Fortune 500 companies who turned to her when crises threatened to undo them. Nadia was no stranger to high society, corporate boardrooms, or prestigious events. But she never forgot where she came from. Despite her success, she lived with an awareness that the world did not always see her achievements before her skin color. Subtle slights in business meetings, the double takes when she introduced herself as the founder of her company, the quiet pauses before recognition settled in, all reminders that prejudice lingered even in polished rooms. Still, she remained calm, graceful, and deliberate in her approach, using each challenge to sharpen her resolve. Her personal life, too, had taken a turn that most did not know. 2 years earlier, she married a wealthy businessman whose family estate in San Francisco was known for hosting California's most exclusive gatherings. Together, they agreed to keep certain aspects of their marriage private. Nadia was not interested in headlines or spectacle. She valued the substance of her work and the intimacy of their bond over the glitter of public attention. So when she received an invitation to attend a high-profile charity gala at that very estate, she saw it as an opportunity not just to show support for a cause she believed in, raising funds for underprivileged children, but also to quietly observe the circles of influence that often shape decisions in the state. It was the kind of event where socialites mingled with billionaires, politicians struck quiet deals, and reputations were both built and destroyed in a single evening. On that evening, she chose a navy blue dress, elegant yet understated. She arrived alone, with the confidence of someone who had nothing to prove and yet everything to contribute. For Nadia, the gala was not simply a social event. It was a chance to reaffirm her belief that those with privilege had a responsibility to uplift others. But beneath her calm exterior, there was also awareness. She knew the subtle codes of these gatherings, the glances, the hierarchies, the unspoken rules of who belonged and who didn't. She had experienced it before, and though she hoped this night would be different, a quiet intuition told her to prepare for the possibility that it wouldn't be. As she stepped out of her car and approached the estate, the mansion glowed with light, laughter spilling out from the ballroom where chandeliers sparkled and champagne flowed freely. It was a setting designed to impress, to remind guests of power and wealth. Yet the true measure of the evening, Nadia believed, would not be in its grandeur but in its humanity. What she did not know was that the very moment she walked through the gates, the night would unravel into something far darker than she could have imagined. The gala that promised to celebrate generosity and compassion would instead expose the raw ugliness of prejudice hiding behind polished smiles. And in that exposure, Nadia's strength, resilience, and hidden power would be tested in a way that would change not just her life, but the reputations of everyone who tried to diminish her. The stage was set, the lights glittered, and the guests were ready. Nadia was about to walk into a storm she had not invited but was destined to face. The moment Nadia reached the entrance, the evening took a turn she had quietly feared but had hoped she would never face. Instead of a warm greeting or a request for her name on the guest list, the security guard barely glanced at her before motioning her toward the service entrance. His voice carried the kind of disdain that cut deeper than any words. "That's where you belong," he muttered, smirking. No check, no questions, only dismissal. Inside, the atmosphere of the gala sparkled with excess. 100 conversations overlapped beneath the glitter of chandeliers. Violins played softly in the background, and waiters carried trays of champagne that shimmered under the lights. It was a room designed to celebrate charity and wealth, but as Nadia stepped into the hall, it became clear that for her, charity was not the theme of the night. Prejudice was. Miranda Lowell, the event organizer whose name was synonymous with California's elite parties, caught sight of Nadia and wasted no time. With a sharp tone loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, she ordered Nadia into the kitchen. "People like you," Miranda declared, "are here to serve, not attend." Her words cut through the laughter, silencing conversations for a moment. Guests glanced at one another but quickly looked away, unwilling to challenge the spectacle. The humiliation hung heavy, as if the grand ballroom itself had turned its back on Nadia. The kitchen, though smaller and tucked away, was no refuge. Inside, she found others who had been relegated to invisible roles. Mostly Black and Latino workers, moving quickly under pressure, their faces marked by fatigue. An older woman named Teresa, balancing stacks of plates, leaned close enough to whisper, "They always treat us like we're invisible." Her words carried years of resignation, but also a weary solidarity. Nadia joined the line of workers, scrubbing dishes under harsh fluorescent lights, while laughter from the ballroom echoed through the walls. Her hands moved with steady precision, but her mind raced. She had faced slights before, but rarely in such a public, degrading form. And she knew this was not just about her. It was about every person who had been told they were less than human because of the color of their skin. The cruelty escalated when Miranda returned with two companions. Gregory Mason, a real estate developer who prided himself on his empire, and Helena Davenport, heiress to a pharmaceutical fortune. Their presence in the cramped kitchen was not accidental. It was a performance. They circled her like spectators at a cruel show. Helena's laughter was sharp as she mocked the way Nadia's hands looked after washing dishes, as though hard work itself was something shameful. Gregory sneered, his words dripping with contempt as he said, "People like her always want shortcuts to get ahead." Miranda smirked, adding with satisfaction, "Some people simply don't know their place." The workers nearby kept their heads down, their silence heavy with fear. But Nadia's silence was not submission, it was calculation. She spoke calmly, reminding them that the purpose of the gala was to raise money for underprivileged children, the very children who faced futures shaped by prejudice and limited opportunity. Her words, clear and steady, disrupted the cruelty. For a moment, even the kitchen itself seemed to pause. The onlookers did not know how to react. Mockery had been the expectation, not truth. What they did not realize was that beneath her calm exterior, Nadia was preparing to reveal the truth that would unravel everything they thought they knew about her. She was not simply a woman in a navy dress forced into the shadows of a kitchen. She was a Yale-educated business leader, the founder of a $75 million consulting empire. And even more than that, she was the woman who called this estate her home. The injustice of the moment was brutal, but it was also becoming a turning point. Every insult, every smirk, every whispered slight was building toward a revelation no one was prepared to face. In the ballroom, champagne glasses clinked and music played on, but the storm was gathering behind closed doors. The whispers of the workers, the weight of the insults, and Nadia's quiet resilience all pressed forward toward the breaking point. The mask of high society was about to crack, exposing the ugliness beneath the glitter. And when the truth finally came into the open, it would not just humiliate those who had mocked her. It would destroy their carefully built empires. The night was not yet over. The kitchen scene was only the beginning. The breaking point came swiftly, and it was devastating. While Nadia worked in silence, scrubbing plates as if she had been hired to serve, Miranda's voice echoed once more. This time she made no effort to conceal the venom in her words. She called for attention, pulling Gregory and Helena closer, then raised her glass as if making a toast. "Look closely, everyone," she said, smirking. "This is the place where people like her belong. No matter how they dress, no matter what they claim to be, this is who they really are. Dishwashers, servants, the invisible hands behind our celebrations." Laughter rippled among the small cluster of wealthy onlookers who had followed her into the kitchen. To them it was entertainment, humiliation dressed as humor. The sting of prejudice, masked behind polite smiles, now revealed itself in cruel clarity. Nadia's presence in that kitchen had become a spectacle, her dignity stripped before an audience that found amusement in her degradation. Her heart pounded, not from shame, but from the weight of injustice pressing against her chest. Every insult landed not just on her but on the countless others whose lives had been reduced by prejudice. She thought of her parents, who had sacrificed everything to ensure she would stand tall. She thought of the young people for whom this gala supposedly raised money, children who might grow up facing the same walls she had broken through. And now, here she was, diminished to the role of a servant in her own home. Then came the words that shifted the room. With calm precision, Nadia lifted her head, her voice steady but sharp. She asked a single question: "Whose mansion do you think this is?" The silence that followed was thick, unnerving. Miranda, caught off guard, stammered before replying with confidence she didn't feel. "The Fairchild family, of course. Everyone knows that." But the truth was about to shatter their certainty. As if on cue, footsteps thundered down the hallway. The air shifted as the estate's true owner entered, his face dark with fury. He had just returned from an urgent board meeting, only to be informed that his wife had been humiliated in his own house. His voice carried like thunder. "Where is my wife?" The kitchen froze. Workers lowered their eyes, while Miranda and her companions stiffened in disbelief. Slowly, Nadia raised her hand, sliding back her sleeve to reveal the wedding ring that had bound her to the very man now standing at the door. Gasps erupted from those who had mocked her. Their cruel laughter drained into silence. The moment hung suspended, heavy with shock. Miranda's smirk collapsed into fear. Gregory's face blanched. Helena's hand trembled around her glass. None of them had imagined that the woman they had forced into the kitchen was not only a guest but the mistress of the estate. And Nadia was not finished. With calm authority, she pulled a phone from her apron pocket. She had been recording every word, every insult, every smirk that revealed the rot beneath their polished image. The evidence was undeniable, the humiliation no longer private but immortalized in digital clarity. The owner's fury ignited into action. He ordered his assistant to document everything. Contracts, sponsorships, long-standing deals, each one tied to the names of Miranda Lowell, Gregory Mason, and Helena Davenport, would be cut off. His words carried a finality that left no room for doubt. "My wife was degraded in my own home, and every insult will be repaid." The kitchen erupted into chaos. Miranda begged. Gregory sputtered excuses. Helena tried to shift blame. But Nadia stood calm, the quiet storm at the center of their unraveling. For years they had wielded power without accountability. In one night, with a single revelation, the ground beneath them cracked open. Yet this was not just about revenge. It was about exposing the truth to the world. As Nadia looked around at the faces in the kitchen, the workers who had bowed their heads in silence, Teresa with tears welling in her eyes, she knew this moment was larger than herself. It was a reckoning. When the video of their insults reached the outside world, it would not just stain reputations. It would dismantle empires. And as she stood tall, the ballroom still humming with oblivious chatter, the question that lingered was simple yet devastating. If this is what happened to a Yale-educated business leader in her own home, what hope remained for those with no power at all? The fallout was swift, and it was devastating for those who had mocked her. Within hours, Nadia's recordings reached the San Francisco Chronicle, the Los Angeles Times, and CNN. Headlines exploded across the nation. The silent revenge. How California's elite were unmasked in one night. The video went viral, reaching 2 million views in less than 12 hours. By the third day, Lowell Events, the empire Miranda had built for 2 decades, had lost 95% of its contracts. Gregory Mason's $130 million development deals collapsed one after another. His own daughter called from London, ashamed of the family name. Helena Davenport, once untouchable, saw investors flee and lawsuits pile at her door. Their power crumbled not from force, but from the weight of their own cruelty. But Nadia's story was never only about their downfall. It was about what rose in its place. Her consulting firm expanded at a pace she had never experienced before. Universities invited her to speak on leadership and equity. Black entrepreneurs sought her mentorship, inspired not only by her success but by her courage to stand in dignity when humiliation was forced upon her. She created a program to retrain service workers in business and healthcare management. Teresa, the older woman who had whispered her solidarity in that kitchen, became one of the first graduates. At 60, she walked across a stage in tears, saying, "I never imagined I could start over at this age." 6 months later, Miranda attempted a rebrand, calling herself a cultural sensitivity consultant. But the world remembered too clearly. She faded into irrelevance. Gregory sold his company and retreated into seclusion. Helena lost her board seat and her influence. The stage they once ruled had closed its curtain. Nadia, on the other hand, stepped onto a new stage, one larger than any ballroom. She became a national voice for racial equity, speaking not with bitterness but with conviction. In an interview, when asked if she felt remorse for the destruction of others' careers, she answered, "No remorse, compassion." But what's truly unfair is when a Yale-educated black woman is sent through a service entrance only because of her skin color. Her words resonated, not as vengeance, but as truth. A year later, she returned to Yale, standing before a sea of graduates dressed in caps and gowns. She told them, "True power lies in lifting those whom society tries to diminish. The best revenge is not destruction, but building a world where prejudice cannot survive." The applause rose into a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. In that moment, Nadia's story was no longer just her own. It belonged to everyone who had ever been told they did not belong. 2 years later, she joined the Hamilton Foundation's board, leading racial equity initiatives nationwide. Letters of apology reached her desk, including one from Miranda Lowell herself. Nadia responded with a single line, "Reparations are not words on paper, but actions that lift others." Her humiliation that night had been meant to silence her. Instead, it became the spark that lit a movement far greater than anyone in that glittering ballroom had anticipated. The mansion that once echoed with laughter at her expense now symbolized a turning point in the nation's conversation on dignity, equity, and justice. And so the story closes where it began. A black woman walking into a room designed to exclude her. But this time she did not walk in alone. She carried with her the voices of millions who had seen the truth and refused to look away. The question left for us is not what happened to Nadia because her triumph is clear. The question is what happens next, in every room we walk into, in every silent glance, in every moment where prejudice still tries to hide in plain sight. Will we look away, as that ballroom once did? Or will we stand, speak, and act, ensuring that dignity is never again mistaken for privilege? The choice belongs to us. What do you think about Nadia's journey? A woman who walked into a gala meant to celebrate charity, only to be humiliated, and yet turned that moment into a movement that exposed the truth about power and prejudice. Her strength forced the world to reckon with injustice in a way that could not be ignored. If her story moved you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more powerful stories like this one, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel.